In this week's episode, we talk about Google AdWords, how to do social media content that works, and the next 14 hours of your life. Hey, and welcome to episode 24 of Business Greenhouse TV. A bit casual here today. Wanted to kind of get out of it. We were going to try and go out on location, except today the weather is horrendous. So back in the office it is, having a casual day, just pumping through the work and loving being back here. We're going to get straight into today's show. So Michelle, what is our first question?
We've got a private message. I run a plumbing business and business has dropped in recent months. I'm considering doing Google AdWords to get some more inquiry. What are your thoughts?
Very good question. So business is dropping and considering using Google AdWords to make up the difference. Okay, so I'm a massive fan of Google AdWords, like a really big fan of Google AdWords, like as much as Facebook and a lot of those digital platforms. I'm a massive fan. Let me give you why. Like, I think that the biggest change that we've got to start to make is, what I call going from a megaphone to a magnet. Like, back in days gone by, you had to herald a message as much as you can, as often as you can, to everybody that will listen. And you take a full page ad in a paper and, your target audience would be 5% of the readership of that paper, but you're paying for everybody. If you look at what's happening with the magnet, that's the megaphone. The magnet is drawing the people, like only the people interested in you right now are the ones that find you. And that's what Google is, because you only pay for results. You only pay when somebody of their own volition opens a browser and types in, plumber Brisbane, plumber Sydney, plumber Oregon, and then finds your website. You're only paying when they are actively trying to find your products and services and land on your web page. That's why I like it. Now, some people say to me it's expensive. Compared to what? Like, it's super targeted. There's nothing like it. These people want it. They've typed it in. They're looking for those services. So I'm a massive fan because you're dealing with people that have really hot, really warm traffic by the time they get to your website. So, but a couple of things to remember. It's gone up a lot. The price for clicks is much higher. I mean, I remember when it was 10, 15, 20 cents a click and we were running those for clients. They were good days because, not very competitive and so forth, And so the prices are up now. Like, some are still $1 or $2, which is excellent. Most industries are $5 to $12 a click, and some are ridiculous. If you're talking about a family law firm in London, then you're paying £50, $100, like for a click to your website. But when you get a client, like let's say 1 in 10 clicks become a client, you're spending £500, but the average family law case is worth $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So it works out okay. So there's a bit of a bell curve, I think, with Google AdWords where I think it's coming off being really cool and the favorite thing at the moment because of things like Facebook that are cheaper. And I think that's a bonus. Like when people aren't using it as much, supply and demand says that it may not become cheaper, but it won't keep going up in price at the same level that it has. And that's a good thing. It also means that, there's a whole bunch of marketing gurus out there that'll tell you, Google AdWords is dead and the amount of people that look at the ads is getting less. That means people leave, which is excellent because you can dominate that space easier and faster if everybody leaves. So do I think it's a good strategy? I think it's a brilliant strategy. And for someone like a plumber or a trade or a services, whether that be professional services or trades, like it is excellent, okay, for that type of business. So a couple of things to remember that, what I'm going to tell you is probably different to what most people are going to tell you. As a marketer, okay, I'm thinking like a marketer now. We want to be able to make small 1% changes to everything all the time. So the way that Google kind of want you to set it up is one campaign and load in, 50 keywords so that if people type in one of those words, they go to this campaign. And because it has become more sophisticated, you can make changes now to pretty much any part of Google AdWords, except it's a massive minefield. And it takes you 6 months to work out how to use all the sophisticated tools in there. A better way to set it up is one keyword, one campaign, okay? Which takes you way longer to build it, but you can build it in such a way when it's one keyword, one campaign, you can go in and look at any one campaign and tweak the price, the click-through, the average position, the amount you're prepared to pay, you can change the text to one and leave the text to the rest. You can go really granular on getting the little changes when you do one keyword, one campaign. Okay, so that's the way I'd be setting it up if I were you. Now, here's the other thing. Do you go for the outside keywords that are cheaper, or do you go for like the main one that has all the traffic? My own personal opinion is go for the main one that has all the traffic. Okay, so what I love about Google AdWords is you can scale it. You can start small, and when it starts to work, then you can increase campaigns, which means you increase spend. But I would always be starting with the main one. So let's say hypothetically, you're a plumber in Sydney. You'd be going for plumber Sydney first, okay? The main one that has all the traffic that's probably the most expensive. Why? Because you need to be in the market to test it. Whereas, if you go for fix my leaky tap Sydney that has hardly any traffic and you go in on that one and it doesn't work, that could just be because there wasn't enough traffic or you were there the wrong time, instead of giving it a full test. I would always go straight into the main one, the one that you know is going to work, and test it. Now, the cool thing is you can turn them on and turn them off, okay? The other cool thing is you get to set how much you're prepared to pay and how much you're prepared to pay per day. Now, they aggregate this. So if you're prepared to spend $50 a day on AdWords, today you spend $30, tomorrow you spend $20, then the next day it'll happily take $70 of your money and $80 of your money because it aggregates it at that level, okay? So that it's a long-term average. And then it'll happily debit your account. But when you're not on there, you're not on there. So if somebody does a search for a plumber in Sydney and you've just finished your spend, your ad won't show for that day, okay? So you've got to be in it to win it. So the way I would do it if I were you, like people say to me, I've only got a small budget. So they say, I've got $500 for the month for Google AdWords. I'm like, excellent, spend it all in 4 days. Don't try and be on for like 20 minutes every day and drag your $500 out for the month. Because what if 1 hour after your ad's finished, a great big job came along? I would rather be on for 4 days and blow all my money and have tested exactly what that looks like for 4 days rather than try and hop in and hop out and hopefully jag a great client. If at the end of 4 days, like you've driven traffic to your site, you've had some phone calls and you've got inquiry, it's kind of proven that it's worked. Google's job is not to get you a customer, it's to get the phone to ring or the email inquiry. Your job is to then lead them to a sale. So if you do 4 days in and you find out that it's working, you keep going because by then you've got the belief that it's, $20 out, $50 in. So it is a minefield, but you start small. You pick, plumber Sydney, you put a budget in, you give it a test, okay? The first $50 of your spend is going to be your competitors who go online and go, who's the new kid on the block, and click on your domain name, click on your ad and go to your website. Now, Google's smart. They can't just sit there doing that all day and take out your budget. After 2 or 3 clicks of the same IP address, no more go through. They'll get charged for those, okay? So that's pretty clever. So the first few dollars you're going to waste on your competitors having a look, just like when you start AdWords, you're going to see who's on there and start clicking. They're going to do the same. But after a period of time, you test. When you look back after 2 weeks of being on Google AdWords and you everybody that rings up, you say, how did you hear about me? I found you on Google. Excellent. You can start to test how much money out, how much money in. As soon as you get a scenario that works for you, you start to add campaigns. So instead of Plumber Sydney, you would add an entire new campaign, Sydney Plumber. And once that works, you would then do another campaign, hot water system Sydney. And when that works, you would add another campaign, Sydney hot water, and you just build. And you build depth in your campaigns because you know they're working. But by scaling it slowly over time, you can't get caught. You know that it works. If it starts to drop off, you've got to go find out why. But all the data is in there. It tells you how many impressions, how many click-throughs, what you're spending, what position you're in, and so forth. So I want to kind of finish up with this one last bit of information. There are a bunch of AdWords heroes out there who will tell you that sometimes, because the way it works is there are 3 ads at the top and 7 down the side. They'll tell you that the best position to be in is like position 5. To me, if you've got an ad anywhere between 4 and 10 down the right-hand side, that's about as relevant as having a surf shop in Alice Springs. You just don't want to be there. You've got to go for one of the top 3 ads, and primarily the number 1, which costs the most to get there, but it's the one that everybody is forced to see. And then you want to make sure you have all the extensions in place, and you can go and watch a million YouTube videos on how to do extensions. But if you're a trade services type business, make sure you have the phone. One of the options in an ad is there's an image of a phone, and when they hit it, they don't even go to your website, they just ring you. And that is excellent. You can imagine a plumber, it's 2:30 a.m., there's water coming through your floorboards. You're not interested in looking at somebody's website, you're interested in who's going to answer and say, I'll be there in 22 minutes. So get that on there, because it's for the immediate people that just want somebody there now at any price. So you need to be there. But it is the kind of strategy that's going to do massive things for your business. So get on there fast, test and measure, give it a good budget, see what happens, and scale that budget over time. Awesome question. Michelle, what is question number 2?
Jack O'Brien asks, what are some common mistakes people make when crafting content for social media?
Jack O'Brien, Terrace Physio. What are some what mistakes they make crafting content? Well, there's a few, and I just want to lead off with some. Maybe they're kind of obvious, but people are still making this mistake. I consume so much of people's stuff on the run, and there are so many mistakes. One of them is nowhere near enough content. Okay, so people, I say to people, how often are you posting on Facebook? Oh, I do one a week. That's not going to work. One a week is like, after 3 seconds of scrolling past your content, they have forgotten about you. So you can't wait 168 hours before you put another post up, okay? So you've got to be posting daily. You've got to be posting more than once a day if you really want to penetrate. The way social media work is the more people interact, the more people see your stuff, okay? So they need to be seeing your stuff and liking and commenting and posting, because then it'll appear in their feed even more. Okay, it's like an exponential curve. So by posting 2 to 3 times a day, okay, then it'll help people see your stuff more often organically instead of having to pay. So the number 1 mistake is people don't go anywhere near enough. The second mistake is the content is content for content's sake. It's not even necessarily good quality stuff. Okay. People say to me, oh, I would rather put out quality over quantity. That doesn't work. Okay, that's probably better, but if you really want it to work on social, it's quality often. It's quality and quantity, okay? You've got to be putting out tons and tons and tons of good quality content. Now, how do you start to craft good quality? Like, the market tells you if it's any good. We might go, I've done this great video series and I absolutely love it. You put it out, the market's going to either spit you out or it's going to be all over it and really like that content. It will decide. But after you get that a few times of what didn't attract any kind of activity and what did, you get to see what the market likes, and you read from them and you start to replicate more of the stuff that the market liked. Okay, then you start pushing that out all of the time. So that's the number 1 and the number 2. The third one is hardly anybody is spending any money. Okay, organic reach on social is dying. Like I think Facebook's down to like 3 to 5% organic reach. There are some things you can do to hijack that and make it a bit higher, but really like 3 to 5%. That means if you've got 1,000 people following you on social, only 30 to 50 are ever going to see your stuff, okay? The rest, you've got to pay for, okay? Now, the reason why I like that process is because most will be too tight and won't spend any money, which means that the ones that do have got this awesome playing field to go run around in, because most people won't. So create good content and then spend money. Now, if you don't have a lot of money to start with, then how do you decide what to spend money on? I look at what works, okay? So in the first hour of posting something, what's starting to get a lot of activity? If it's starting to get a lot of activity, that means the market likes it. Then I'm going to pay for it to go out to everybody, okay? It might be a $20 boost. It might be a $50 boost. It might be a few $100 boost to get it out to people. It depends what kind of outcome you want from that. But you've got to start spending money and getting that across way more people, okay? And how much? More, okay? More. Like, this is a serious part of business now, is spending money on social, okay? You used to go to networking breakfasts and, sit around with 30 people that you don't like and eat food you don't want to eat. That was called marketing. You don't have to do that anymore. It's an okay strategy, but you can take some of that money you were wasting over there and start to pump this thing through social, okay? Because it is the future. We are living in those days when they said, there's going to be a day when where people live on the internet. Well, we're there, okay? So some of that money that you are spending here has got to come over here and be spent on pushing out good quality content. It doesn't matter right now whether you're a personal trainer, a business coach, a plumber, an accountant, even a taxidermist could find a way to be entertaining on social. So you've just got to get this information out there. Stop telling them about why you're amazing and start just putting out amazing, good quality information. And after a period of time, people will become the authority and people will come and shop with you, okay? So number one, do it way more often. Number two, make sure it's good quality. Number three, spend money. Spend money on this thing. Make it a serious part of any business, okay? And you will start to see the fruit of it. Now, with social now, remarketing is this ultra cool thing. So number four, if you're going to go to go and do all of this work, if you're going to be the one who goes and does social seriously, make sure that you're remarketing and building custom audiences and using the tools like Google have remarketing, Facebook obviously have remarketing, Insta, it's early days, but it's coming. Like these have ways where you can see who is engaging with your stuff and push different messages to them. They're obviously warmer down the funnel than people that have never done, interacted with you. So you can send them different messages. Like this is where it's at, I beat the social media drum like crazy now. I was a skeptic for a long, long time, but I think it's so sophisticated now, and it's certainly working for us. We're, as you guys probably know, if you're like a diehard Greenhouse TV kind of person, we've got some seminars coming up. I know that it's costing me $4.10 to get a rego from social to come to one of our seminars. $4.10, like it's an amazing price. So you've got to get that data, and once you have that data, then life gets really pretty. But there was a day when I used to have to fly around the country doing pre-events to drive people to a big event. That money that I was wasting on airfares is now funded into social to get the same outcome. Okay, so we're changing, and you've got to start to take that seriously. Okay, but content is huge. Like written, video, thumbnails, images, they're all there. You've got to have a mix of all of those, and you will see. And don't get sucked into the rules. I hear people say video kills images 10-1. Well, not in my experience. So for us, we put out videos, we put out images. Images outpull video 3-4-1 at the moment for us. Okay, so don't get caught. Like you've got to find your own game in amongst that, because it'll be different for everybody. Because there's so many variations in video. You can do a crap video or a good video. There's one variation that'll change how people react. So you just get in amongst it and have a go, and start to post once, twice, 3 times a day, okay? And get that information out there, get people engaged with it. And then the other mistake, okay, I'm just going to throw this one on the end. The other mistake is no one's interacting with the people that interact, okay? So, you put out a good quality video and then you forget about it, and 3 days later you're going to upload your thumbnail because that's the next bit of content. Well, there could have been 9 people that commented on your video. You've got to get back in there. When Mary says, I absolutely love this, you write back saying, hey, it was a pleasure to, meet you, and you're great and wonderful. Thanks heaps. When somebody shares it, you go to them and say, really appreciate you sharing this for me. When somebody makes a comment or they tag a friend, thanks for tagging your friend. And they write back saying, oh, it's a pleasure. It's a good video. Thanks heaps for the heads up. Like you've got to start to communicate with these people. The minute it's a faceless company on social, people are gone. They won't care. The minute they think there's some interaction, which humans want, then they stick around, and they're way more like, not only is it good for the algorithm, but it's good for your relationship. Stop focusing on getting more and more likes and start to just communicate with the people you've got, okay? Let's get the people that you've got interacting and go deep with those people. Build a relationship with them. Be like interested in them. And that's going to build you a much better response than just working out how to get 1 million followers on your social. Let's go to Word of the Week. This week, New Testament, we're going to go to Galatians. Okay? And is this the first book that Paul ever wrote? Who knows? Bit of debate on that one. I'm going to run with probably yes. So here, I'm going to read quite a bit of scripture, and then I want to wrap it up with a bit of how does this apply to us. So we all know Paul. Paul was once Saul, and he on the road to Damascus, God smashes him, and he says that really good line, "Who is this Lord? And then goes on a bit of a journey. But at the start of Galatians, he writes this. So we'll start at just before 2. We'll go to 1:21 and we'll read 2 through to 6, 1 through to 6. So he's telling him about like his early days as a believer. And then he says, then I went to Syria and Cilicia. I was personally unknown to the churches of Judea. They only heard the report the man who formerly persecuted us is now preaching the faith he once tried to destroy, and they praise God because of me. So he's retelling his testimony that people feared him, okay, because of what he used to do, the persecution. And then the next one is Paul's acceptance to the apostles. Then after 14 years, so picture that. Then after 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem, this time with Barnabas. I took Titus along. I went in response to a revelation and meeting privately with those esteemed as leaders. I presented to them the gospel that I had preached among the Gentiles. I wanted to be sure I was not running and had not been running my race in vain. Yet not even Titus, who was with me, was compelled to be circumcised, even though he was a Greek. This matter arose because some false believers had infiltrated our ranks to spy on the freedom we have in Christ Jesus and to make us slaves. We did not give in to them for a moment so that the truth of the gospel might be preserved for you. And here's the bit that I really want to pick up on. As for those who were held in high esteem, whatever they were makes no difference to me. God does not show any favoritism. Here we go. They added nothing to my message. Okay, so what does that mean? What's Paul getting at here? Well, it's not ego. It's not arrogance. It's not like they added nothing to my message. You know, picture this. Paul goes away for 14 years. 14 years. So after a few years of, coming to know God and getting a true revelation of God, after a couple of years, he goes away for 14 years to hang out with God, to get revelation, to seek him, to get a big understanding of God's heart, grace, relationship, the love of God. He goes away for 14 years and spends 14 years with the Lord in radical intimacy before he comes back and starts preaching and trying to change culture. 14 years. And when he comes back, I went and saw the super apostles and they added nothing to my message. So what he's saying is he got given a true revelation of God. He really understands the character of God, the love of God, the heart of God, but he didn't get it from sitting under any super apostle. He got it by going to have an intimate relationship with Jesus, okay? Am I saying you shouldn't go to church? I'm not saying that at all. You need to be plugged into your church. I'm saying that the real heart-centered revelation for me and for you happens when we lock ourselves away and we have one-on-one time, okay? Church is brilliant. Church is amazing. I go every week because I love getting a word. I love getting a teaching and so forth. But that's like I'm not getting necessarily the thing for me when I go to church. That's their message at their time. When I go to God in my quiet time on my one day a week, I sit there and show me stuff for my circumstance. Give me a revelation of just how good you are. Give me a revelation of your love for the people around me. And he can show you one-on-one in the situation that you are in. But it took Paul, the amazing Paul, it took him 14 years to go and hang out with Jesus before he could come back and get that real revelation. What about us? What about us in business? If we really want to have a kingdom business, what's our 14 years like with the King? Is it 14 minutes? Is it 14 weeks that you went to a camp? What if you had, is it practical that you ditch everything and go and do 14 years alone in the desert with the Lord? No, but we've got to have something. We've got to build that depth in our intimacy. Paul went and did 14 years. We've got to start to do 14 hours maybe, where we just take a Bible and we sit with God and journal and say, download to me, for me right now, what do I need? I want to have influence. I want a bigger business. I want to change culture. Show stuff in here that I need to fix. 14 years, maybe not. 4 years can't do. 1 year can't do. 14 hours. What about 14 days? What if you just took a 2-week holiday and spent 2 weeks with the Lord? What would you come back like? This intimacy is, if we want to change culture, we're not going to do it unless we get revelation from God. We've got to download stuff for us. Not overarching principles, but specific stuff for us and our businesses. And when we get that level of knowledge and we apply it to our life, we are going to see massive gains, massive influence. And if enough of us do it, we'll win back culture for God. Okay? But Paul goes and spends 14 years with God. there's a picture. We've got to take this really, really seriously. Book some time. Here's a challenge. Book some time right now. When can you go and spend time? When can you book out a day, 2 days, an overnight, a long weekend, a week away with nothing but you, the Lord, a bottle of water, and a journal? Or maybe you and your spouse, whatever, away seeking God for your situation. It's the intimacy that is going to build us to the point where we have a massive business and change culture. Have a super week. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.